All right, guys. Well, welcome. This is going to be an exciting learning lab. This is something that David and I were talking. We've got actually a really cool bonus for you, as I was mentioning just a few minutes ago. And what we're really going to be focusing on, though, is business reporting and kind of the next step in the workflow. So last week, we talked a lot about machine learning. We went over the Parsnip package. We talked about XGBoost models and regression, GLMs, and that sort of thing. This week, what we're doing is kind of taking another step in that workflow, and now we're ready to communicate it to the organization. And we want to be able to show the organization the value and benefit that you are generating through data science. So we're going to be talking a lot about this package called RMarkdown. If you've never heard of RMarkdown, that's okay. We're going to be kind of giving you a primer for it and showing you just high level, basically what it does and how it works. Other than that, I think that's what I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that you think I should mention, David?
No, I think this is good. Let's jump right into it.
All right. So before we get started here, I want you guys to know that this is single-handedly one of the most important topics to me personally. It's something that has accelerated my career, and it's my belief that I'm not unique. I think you guys can do it as well if you learn this technology, which is called RMarkdown, and basically if you learn how to communicate your data science skills. Mm-hmm. So just to give you guys kind of a little bit of background about myself, I used to work for a company that made valves and pipe fittings for industrial applications. And what I did was, as I kind of took on more and more responsibility, I ended up expanding my skill sets, learning R, and specifically learning RMarkdown, how to generate reports that look like this. And just in that process of doing so and being able to provide analyses that no one else could provide through in a vehicle that my boss was accustomed to seeing, which is PDF reports. I was able to get 3 promotions in the span of less than 2 years, and basically go from a low-level manager all the way up to reporting directly to the CEO and managing about 60 plus people or so underneath me. That I was basically doing data analysis every day, trying to figure out, what we were doing, where we could make better decisions. How did I do that? It all started with making reports, being able to provide reports in the PDF format, which is what my boss was accustomed to, and taking existing processes and figuring out ways to improve. So if you do that once, people are going to see that and value that contribution. And if you can continue to do it, which is what I was able to do, then your career is going to take off. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I was going to jump in. I couldn't agree with you more, Matt. I mean, this is not the sexiest topic, like, machine learning and all the nice models and stuff we like to talk about. But this is what really sets you apart from your peers. When you can tie in your work to actual problems that your manager has or your boss has, and show them how that can be improved, then you're definitely going to be much more valued at work. And that just goes across the board.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it may not be the sexiest topic to you, but I guarantee to your boss, this topic is very sexy.
That's the whole point here.
Yeah,
that's the whole point here. Being able to communicate data science to people who are non-technical, and relating your data science results to business problems. So. Exactly.
Yeah. Generating value through reports and communicating the insights that you're seeing. That's what this is all about. All right. So the structure today, it's going to be very similar to last week. We're going to do about 15 minutes. So probably another 5 minutes or so of just us talking through presentation. Then we'll jump into about 30 minutes of demos. And then at the end, we'll circle back with another about 15 minutes of presentation and then some Q&A. So just to get us kicked off, David, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure thing. I'm David Curry, the owner of Sure Optimize. We're a marketing agency focusing on search engine optimization and marketing analytics.
Cool. And you guys know me. My name is Matt Dancho. I'm the founder of Business Science. I really enjoy helping students and educating people that want to learn data science to accelerate their careers. So that's what I'm here to do, and that's what I want to help you guys out with today. All right. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk actually a little bit about what we talked about last week, which is machine learning, just reiterating some of the benefits, and also talking about the data science workflow and kind of showing how we're making the transition this week from the modeling and machine learning to the distribution of that information through reports. So we will be touching on effective communication, which I think is a big piece of this. Often I feel, even myself as a data scientist, it's very important to be able to structure reports and communication in the right way, because if you do it the wrong way, it's very easy to lose your audience attention and detract from what you're trying to accomplish, which is to add value to the organization. We will be going through 2 reports today, which are just kind of demos of reports from our Data Science for Business 101 course. And you will see how the reports are structured, and hopefully those will give you some ideas for how you can then structure your own information as you are adding value to your organization through data science, and once you get to that point where you're ready to start communicating. And then at the end, we've got a really special bonus. I can't tell you how excited. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
All right. So why machine learning? Why do you want to learn this? It is the most in-demand skill of the century. The reason is because it's providing insights that your organization has never been able to achieve before. It's exciting. There's 2 pieces to the puzzle. There's prediction, which is what machine learning allows us to accomplish. And then there's also explanation, which is then taking that predictive model and explaining what features or what are the pieces of it that are making this situation predictive. So if you can predict things better, you're going to be doing great. And if you can explain them, you're going to do excellent. You're going to do even better. So oftentimes in businesses, explanations are really what they're after. So if you can explain to the organization why something is the way it is and why a model works the way it does, you can make a lot of better decisions. Machine learning is very desirable for organizations because it solves high impact problems. This is something that affects every part of the organization. So I want to show you guys this slide because really it's about where you can solve problems. And this slide encompasses just a handful of problems. This isn't even a comprehensive list, but this is just, a few high impact problems that I know of and that David knows of that you can benefit your organization. There's many more, but just focusing on a few of these, you're going to save your organization a ton of money, because these are costs, often hidden costs that the organization doesn't know about, and you can help solve these with machine learning. All right, so machine learning is important. How do we apply machine learning in the business? This is kind of that workflow from the beginning to end. So we start with a business problem, and eventually we go to business value. But how do we get there? Well, you got to go through this kind of process, this workflow. You get data, you meet with decision makers, you hypothesize, you experiment, and eventually you build some models, which is what we talked about last week. And then once you do that and you have something that's worth talking about, then you go into the phase of actually communicating that information, so distributing it. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today, is this piece here where I'm going to focus on business reporting. And it's taking that machine learning model that you've worked so hard to develop through all of your analysis and the team's analysis and others in the organization that you've had to meet with. So you now have a model that you've built from the ground up, and you're ready to communicate it. So how do we go about doing that? That's what this presentation is about. And keep in mind that this is not the end goal. The goal at this stage is to get approval to then move into deployment. So you want to be able to build a web application that generates value and allows your organization to make decisions better. That is where you're going to generate business value. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Effective communication, what needs to happen. This is kind of just a high level discussion here about, things that David and I have learned through working with companies. And these are just kind of like, what I'll say, pro tips. These are just kind of tips that we can give you to help you better and more effectively communicate data science in your organization. All right. So first thing I want to talk about, how to structure a report. There's 3 components to effective data science communication. The first one is your problem statement. You have to have a really good problem statement. You want to cut to the core and be as concise as possible and explaining what is the problem. And that should be the first piece of your report. The second piece, the solution statement. So you want to give them the solution up front. You don't want to have them read through your entire report and then get to the solution. That's a bad way to do it. You want to say problem, solution. And then the third component is everything else. That's your plots, your story, your, explaining what you did, trying to use, terms that audience is well-versed in, and trying to use maybe lots of visualizations, but that's everything else that supports your solution. So if you structure your reports this way, I found this to be very beneficial, and you'll see that in the reports that we talk about today.
Yeah. And even if you're communicating to other technical people, I think this is still the best way to go, because they may have a better understanding about all the nitty-gritty details, but we're all human. We kind of want to just get to the point and understand what it is we're about to get into. And if you can establish that at the beginning, then you capture people's attention. And then you can go into the storyline about how you got there and why it is the way it is.
Exactly. This is just a really good recipe for success. If you're making technical reports or business reports, this is the recipe that I follow. Okay, so here's an example. And this is one of the reports that we're going to take a look at today. You can see very clearly here, we've got a problem statement, and it's very concise. It's just one sentence. Marketing would like to increase the email campaign engagement by segmenting the customer base using buying habits. So very simple terminology, everyone understands. Nothing about models or predictive analytics. No, it's just, hey, this is the problem. This is what we've heard from our organization, and this is how this is what we're going to try and solve. Also, I will mention, if you can put dollars in here, meaning assigning a cost to that problem, that's often a really good way to show people the size of the problem, how big of a problem that is to the organization. And you don't necessarily need to eliminate the problem, but if you can reduce that cost or increase the profit, anything like that terminology, that's going to work really well in your problem statement. I would be as concise as possible, 1, 2, maybe 3 sentences at most, and then just go right into the solution. The next piece, the solution summary. So you're giving them the result up front, not making them wait to find out exactly where you're going with your analysis. If you give them that solution right away, then they're going to want to read more. They're going to want to know, okay, how did you come to that solution? What did you do to get to that conclusion? So you can see here, we've got a solution statement. And the solution is, we've identified 4 customer segments that can be used to customize email engagement. Segment 1, they prefer road bikes below $4,000 or economical models. Segment 2, they prefer mountain bikes above $3,000, which are premium models. Segment 3, road bikes above $3,000, and segment 4 is just below $3,000. So right there, they have the result that's attractive to them, which if I'm in the marketing department, I'm excited because, okay, you now have identified which customers go into these segments, and now I can send a customized email to, say, segment 1, just showing them the new models of road bikes that are below $4,000 and that are the economical models. So they can just target those customers specifically and that helps them create more engaging emails.
Yeah, notice that the solution summary doesn't have anything about machine learning or the model or how you got there. It's all about the result that your work has provided. What you've determined from your work is in the solution, not the actual work itself.
Yeah, and I will say, I wouldn't even put machine learning in your report if you don't have to. I mean, obviously, you're going to be explaining that you're doing, these data analyses, but the less is more, honestly, when you're communicating. So everything else, and you're going to see as we go down through here, there's really not a whole lot of text. It's a lot of visuals. And it's, and really, I'm actually trying to limit my technical jargon so people can understand and really focus in on the numbers and the visuals to explain the story.
Yeah.
All right. So how are you going to do it? What tools do you have available to you? Well, one of the tools that's my favorite for doing these types of reports is RMarkdown. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. What can RMarkdown be used for? Reports. So HTML-based reports, which are interactive reports, PDFs, which are static reports that most people in your organization will be able to digest. And then you can also make Word documents as well. So it does reports. That's the first one. Second one, you can make slide decks with it. You can do HTML, so interactive slide decks, and then you can also do PowerPoints. So that makes it very valuable. I know a lot of companies are using PowerPoints for almost all of their executive level communication. So that is definitely, PowerPoints is definitely a good option for you there. You can even make web apps, which we'll talk about a little bit in the bonus, and web pages and books. So there's all sorts of different things you can do with RMarkdown. So once you learn this RMarkdown structure, you become able to take your data analysis and deploy it in many different forms, and it becomes really interesting, especially if you're interested in doing the last three, which are building web apps, building web pages, and building and creating books. If you're interested in that, there's a couple links here. It is part of the Tidyverse. There's a few links here, so once we send you the slide decks, you can check out these links to get to the gallery and to get to this web page here. Okay, it's a demo time, but before we jump in, David, is there any questions that we need to handle before we get into?
No questions. Actually, everybody's so quiet. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
That's because I'm explaining this information so well right now.
Yeah, I guess you've captured them. You hypnotized them.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Definitely here to help answer them. So
okay,
we can just keep going for now, Matt.
Cool. All right. So
William says he's mesmerized, by the way. So that's cool.
Well, you guys haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get a lot better. All right. So we're going to show you two reports. I've got one up here right now. And what I want to do is just kind of actually scroll through so you guys can see the difference between an HTML report and a PDF report. And then we'll jump into the actual code so you can see, what makes up an RMarkdown document. So first things first, I'm going to hit this little button here. I've actually already taken this code, which is a .rmd file, and I've hit the knit button, and it's created this thing that's called an HTML report. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it in a new window. So when I do that, it puts it into a window like this. And what this is called is an HTML report. So this is a report that you can put internally, like on an internal website. And the advantage here is that it's actually interactive. So people who are reading through your report can hover over different plots and zoom in on different things, and we'll see that. Okay, so this is the customer segmentation. This is actually not the report that I want to take a look at. Oops. So let me knit this really quick.
Hey Matt, while you're switching screens, can you explain what knit is?
Yes. So I hit this button called knit right here, and what that does in RMarkdown is it takes this document that has code and text in it, and it converts it into, well, the way I have it set up right now is I'm knitting to HTML. So it basically runs all the code in the document and it converts it into a report.
Got it.
Okay, so the first report we're going to be talking about is this product pricing algorithm. And I'm just going to walk down through it with you guys, just reading it briefly. So the first thing is our problem statement. So research and development is the audience here. They want help to determine new product ideas and pricing using existing product line as a benchmark. So this is very similar to the analysis that we did last week when we built a machine learning model that predicted bicycle product prices. And it also looks at gaps in their current product line. So we'll see that as we go down here. Our solution summary, we've identified several product gaps in the existing product line, including this combination of aluminum and overmountain. So aluminum is a bike frame style. So the material is aluminum, and overmountain is a product subcategory. So our products fit in the categories. Apparently this subcategory of overmountain and aluminum do not have any bikes. So there's a gap. Same thing with the triathlon bikes. There's no aluminum models. So the data science team has developed a pricing model that uses predictive analytics to estimate the price of the new bicycle models based on their existing fleet. This ensures that new models are priced comparatively to other similar models. And then the next steps here is to take our model and move it into a proof of concept web application that can be deployed to the R&D department. Okay, so that's the solution. Then now comes everything else. So this is your opportunity to explain very concisely what's going on and what the analysis entailed. So we took a look at, we did what's called a gap analysis. We took a look at our existing bike list, which is all of the products that company manufactures. We found out that there's 97 bike models, which are listed here. And you can see that, there's all 97. And then what we did was we took that look at that and we just did some basic visualizations and we looked for some gaps. So we developed this interactive plot that showcases all of the different bike models by aluminum and carbon frame. And if you hover over them, you can actually see what model that is and what the unit price is of that model. So for example, this first one is a Scalpel SI5 and it's priced at $3,200. What we can see here is that this section here of overmountain and triathlon, they don't have any aluminum bikes. So that's something that if the theory is if we make these bikes, we can generate more revenue because there may be a missed opportunity in terms of their customers there. So you can see that they've got Jekyll and Trigger models up here that are all carbon, but they don't have any aluminum frame models down here. And this is a nice report. One of the advantages of doing interactive in the HTML-based report is that people can zoom in on certain parts and you can actually see and interact with the data and understand what each one of these dots means. You can think of it compared to a static plot. You can't really hover over top of these and understand what the data is. So for somebody familiar with this data, that could be a really nice, a nice benefit. So one of the reasons to maybe use an interactive report versus a PDF report.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Matt, your voice is going in and out. Make sure your microphone is near you.
Okay. Is this any better?
A little bit.
Okay. Here, I'll try to make sure that the microphone. All right. Is this any better?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Cool. And then the last piece is the price prediction. So what we're showing here is how to predict two new models. And these are aluminum frame triathlon bike and an aluminum frame overmountain bike. And this is where your data science comes in. So that model that we built last week, which was an XGBoost model, which is one of the models, we decided to use that again for this particular report. And what we're doing is we're showcasing how this model has predicted. So it's predicted a price of $2,400 for this new model, which is called a Slice aluminum triathlon bike. And then people can easily kind of inspect this plot up here and say, okay, $2,400 are right around in the middle here. So it's predicting this around $2,400 for this triathlon bike. And then for the Overmountain, it's predicting around $3,000 as the base model price. Okay. So that is just a short example of a report that you can create very quickly. And it's got your problem statement, it's got your solution statement, and it's got the analysis then that drove that report. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is that this report is not limited to an HTML report. So I can change this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to convert all of my interactive plots to static ggplots, and then I'm going to knit again, but this time I'm going to knit to PDF. And what this is going to do is it's going to produce a PDF report, which is something that most people in your organization will be familiar with. So, and again, this is when I was when I was working for my last company, I was generating these PDF reports very frequently and just emailing them to the people who needed to see the information. So you can see that all I did there was I changed I converted my interactive plots to static plots, and I knit to PDF. So we've got our problem statement, our solution summary. This is the gap analysis. You can see that it's printing this table a little differently, which is because we're now in the PDF. This is the static, so I can't hover over any of these, but you can still see, people will still very easily be able to see that aluminum and Overmountain. Oh yeah, there's a gap there. Aluminum and triathlon, there's a gap there. And then the price prediction for their new models. And notice that the table prints a little bit differently as well. Okay.
Hey, Matt, can you explain the relationship of the report and the data and how it's kind of displaying the data within the report?
Sure. So that actually is a good segue into the code. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you the code that built this report. And the first thing is it's a .rmd file. So it's a special type of file that as soon as you convert, it's still a text-based file. So this is all just text in here, but as soon as you convert it to a .rmd file, it's got a special formatting. So you can see it's got this bit up here, which controls the title of the document, the author, the date, the type of output. So right now, PDF document is first. So when I click the knit button, it's going to knit to PDF. If I switch it to knit to HTML, now HTML automatically gets converted to the top, and it's now printing an interactive report. And then it's got this parameters here, which is this is what we call parameterized RMarkdown. And this is a special flag or a special variable that I've added in here called interactive. And when I toggle that to true, then I can convert my plots from static. So this is a static plot in here. And if I hit the knit button again, it'll create a dynamic plot. So now I can hover over this one. So it's got this first little bit of code here, which is really just driving. They call this YAML. This is what drives the title and some of the different options for the report. And there's a lot of different options. And we actually teach this in week 7, which I'm just getting ready to release of the 101 course. So if you want to learn our Markdown, all the different options for this piece here, that's what I would recommend. And then this, you know, for this purpose, for understanding how it works, just kind of think of this as like global options that control the overall structure of your report. The next bit of piece of code here, and you see these 3 backticks. Hopefully you guys can all see that. I know it's a little small, but there's 3 backticks, and then there's this like in between brackets, a little bit of information, and then we've got some code in here. This is what we call a code chunk. And in an RMarkdown document, you can actually hit the play button here to run that locally. And this is a special piece of code here, a special code chunk that's going to set some additional options for our document. So echo equals false means don't show any of the code. And if I toggle this to true, and if I run this, so I'm going to just click the knit button again, we're going to see some code chunks now show up in our document. So now, before we didn't have any code chunks, and now we've got all of these code chunks being shown. So what I would recommend is using this echo equals true and false, depending on what your audience is. So if your audience is other data scientists, they may want to see what code you're using to make this data. But if you're sending it to, say, an executive, they're probably not going to want to see that code. So that's what this piece does here. And this affects everything globally. You can also affect it locally. So if I put echo, so how I move that echo equals false up here, but if I put echo equals true here at this next code chunk, and if I hit the knit button, so even though the global option is now set to false to not show any code, I've now allowed this piece of code chunk right here to be shown in the document. So every time I hit the knit button, basically what's happening is it's running the document based on whether or not I want an HTML document or a PDF document. And then what it's doing is it's running all the code in that document and it's displaying it in a format that you can communicate. So either HTML based or PDF based. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, that does answer the question. I think what you were showing about putting code in the report or not is an important distinction, because if you're communicating to other data scientists, there may be a specific piece of code you want to highlight to say, hey, maybe this is problematic, or should it be done this way? And then you can output just that chunk of code in the report. But again, for this example, we're talking about communicating to executives and management levels, so we wouldn't want to put any code in there.
Yeah, generally speaking, most of my reports actually do not contain code. The only time I'm really putting code in my reports is if I'm putting something online that I want everyone to see, you know, other data scientists to be able to see and reproduce my results.
Yep.
All right, so I switched echo to false here, but echo is still true. So I'm just going to get rid of this little bit here. And this is our first normal code chunk. So this is a special code chunk up here that sets up our document. It's has this option setting, and these are global options that we're basically using this function from knitter to tell all of the code to not be displayed, to not show any messages, to not show any warnings, and to adjust the out width of our figures to 100% width. So these are global options. Now, in our next code chunk, we're loading some libraries. So these are the libraries needed to actually produce this report. We're sourcing some scripts. So we've got some functions in here that when I source these scripts, it pulls in some functions that I've built. And then what it does is it loads in our data and loads in the models. So if you remember the models that we made last week, we would have saved those models, and now we're loading them into this document. Okay. And then we actually get into, so none of this is even shown in the report. So if you look over here at the report, these 4 code chunks here are not shown. Now, the only reason this one was shown is because I had that echo equal true. I put that in up here. So really, so now I've got all my data, my library is loaded, and now I'm going to talk. I'm adding in some text. I'm going to talk about the problem statement. I'm going to talk about the solution. I'm going to talk about the gap analysis. And then when I'm ready to put in some of the data, then now I've got another code chunk in here, and I want to put in my bike list. So what this does is if I run this piece of code, here, let me run all of these. So I'm just hitting the play button. And what the play button does is allows me to run these code chunks and load these into local memory. So if you see in my environment, I now have some functions and stuff that I've loaded in, some data as well. And now when I run this get bike features, so that get bike features is a function that I pre-built. And all it is pulling in some data. So it's got the bike model ID, the price of that bicycle, the model, the category, the primary bike category, the secondary category, its frame material, and some additional information. And then the next piece, so what I'm doing is I'm adding in now a little bit more text. I'm talking about the gap analysis that I did. So that's this piece right here. And then I'm putting in a new plot. So this, I've created a function externally that pulls in, that builds an interactive plot. I have this interactive parameter, which is something that I've set that now toggles whether or not I want a static plot to be returned or an interactive plot. So when I run this, what it does is it looks at my parameter that I've set up here, this interactive true. And since interactive is set equal to true, this is now going to be produced as a interactive plot. So when I hover over it, it's gonna dynamically show me information about each of the different points, and I can zoom in, and I have access to that plotly visualization. Then if I set this equal to false and go back to my my gaps, so if I set that equal to false and I run this again, now it's a static visualization. So I can't actually click on any of this. It's just it's an image. Okay. So that's how you're really able to integrate code within your Word document. You just put it in these code chunks. So this is an R code chunk, and then I have a special variable here called out.height set to 600 pixels. And all that's doing is making sure that my plot is 600 pixels tall when it gets produced, when I click this knit button. This is our pricing prediction. So the last bit of here is where we're doing our data science, and we've come up with this new algorithm that's going to predict what the prices should be. And this is the code to do that. So we're creating a couple of new models. That's what this data looks like. It's got a model base of trigger, slice, model tier, and so on, and frame material attributes. We pull in our XGBoost model that we built, and then we do a prediction on it. So when I do this, if I click the play button here, if I click the play button here, and if I click the play button here, what it's producing is predictions on the fly. And if I change some of these values, so if I go back up here and say I toggle this flag from 0 to 1 for black, what that's going to do is it's going to change this price here. So let me do that. I'll show you how it works. If I hit this play button again, play this, play that, and now we've got a 1 here, and the price has gone up. So it was $2,400, now it's $3,400. So that's basically how this works. And you've got a report that you can basically produce on the fly, depending on what the R code is that you want to run in it. So pretty cool, right?
Yeah, another part about this is work that you've already done. Like, you've already done your analysis, you've already built the models, all of that's done. You're just now basically doing a formatted version of your code so that it will print out in a readable report for others to see.
Okay. So that was the first report that I wanted to show you. Hopefully that all makes sense. What I want to do next is show you one more report, and we won't spend as much time on this one just because I want to get to that bonus. But I do want to show you 2 examples of reports. Another one that's very common that people want to do is customer segmentations. So what I'm doing is I'm just running this HTML. I've clicked the knit button for this next report. It's a customer segmentation report. I'm going to click this button, and now I've got it just in my browser. So the problem statement: marketing would like to increase email campaign engagement. So this is what we have already talked about at the beginning. So we're going to use the customer buying habits to be able to segment this customer. Our solution: we've come up with 4 different segments based on their on some clustering that we've done, and we see now that there's 4 segments that tend to have certain preferences. This visualization kind of shows us a heat map of our pricing, or excuse me, what our customer is purchasing by types of models. And we can see that there's some darker areas. So this particular model or the particular customer seems to like mountain bikes quite a bit more, because you're seeing a dark blob here versus over here in the road bike section. They're not spending as much money on road bikes. So there's definitely some customer preferences. These customers up here where there's dark spots, they seem to like road bikes a little bit more. And then you have some that are just kind of light across the board, and so on. The next piece here is a customer segmentation plot. So now we've taken those customers, and what we're doing is we're actually putting them on a visualization to see which ones are most similar to each other. Mm-hmm. And we see that we've got one blob here, we've got another blob here, we've got a blob here, and we've got a blob here. And then the final visualization is really where the information then jumps out. So what we've done is we've taken those 4 groups and we start to visualize what they're buying. So what we've done is we've taken the top bikes that they've purchased and converted that into a visualization that breaks down the category 1, which is our mountain versus road bike, and then the unit price of the bicycle. So this first cluster here, what we can see is that there's a lot more dots in the road bike, and we can see that it's got a higher distribution of right under the $3,000 price mark. So this is a log scale, so 1,000, 3,000, and 10,000. And we can see that most of the bikes that they're buying are underneath $3,000. So what we can do is we can make a statement about that customer, and we can say that, hey, that segment 1 that we found, they tend to like road bikes below $4,000. So 4,000. If you hover over, this is the last couple of models that they've purchased, and you can see that they're right around $3,900. Now they do have a few that they've purchased that are really high, but by and large, most of the bike models are below $4,000. The next cluster here, we can see that this cluster is purchasing a lot more mountain bikes. They only have a few dots over here that are road bikes. And we can see that the distribution is predominantly more than $3,000 or $2,500 or so. So you can see that their preference is more for high-end models. So we can make a statement, they like mountain bikes above $3,000, and then so on. So you keep going through your customers, and you've got your different segments. We did this the exact same way that we did the last report. So we have our libraries that we loaded. We have some information up front to make this report. And we've loaded in a few different libraries, read in some data, pulled in some plotting helper functions that we've built. And then it's just text. And then it's just adding a little bit of code to be able to present the findings. So this is where this first plot is entered into the document. The second plot is here. The third and final plot is right down here.
Nice.
And that's it. So it's really not a whole lot of information. So once you learn how to code in R, and once you learn how to make RMarkdown, you can create these custom reports. The last thing I want to do is knit this to PDF. Oh, I think I'm going to have to toggle this to false here. It's probably going to give me an error. Yep, it did. Okay, so one more time. So what I'm doing is I'm converting the interactive plots to static plots, and I'm creating a PDF now. And then this is what that PDF looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone had a question about that earlier. If you do it to like a PDF or Word, you can't have the interactive plots in there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And it's so you're only going to be able to use interactivity if you do it as an HTML report. It just and it's just kind of a function of how knowing your audience and what type of report that they're going to want to see. if they're more familiar with Word and PDFs, I would go that route rather than going the HTML report. HTML, in my mind, is if someone is really familiar with like technology and wants to have that interactive component where they can drill in, then I would send them an interactive report. So that would be data scientists or technical managers or people that just like technology. But if it's kind of the type of person is they're more interested in printing out their reports or viewing them as a static document, then I would certainly go with the PDF approach. And honestly, when I was doing this, and this was a couple years ago, but probably not a whole lot has changed. I would say that most people, executives, will want the PDF version.
Yeah. So you want to take a quick question break?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I had answered this one, but I think it might be interesting for other people. Steven had asked if you could change the adjust the fonts. And I told him yes, because you can add like a style HTML tag and put CSS in there. Of course, we're not getting into too much detail on the RMarkdown, but you can use HTML in RMarkdown.
Yes. Yeah. And you can adjust the fonts. The PDF is a little bit trickier because it uses this technology called LaTeX, LATE, I think it's X. And then you have to be more familiar with that technology, which is very difficult to work with. But you can, what I would recommend doing is searching, like doing a Google search for the PDF. With the HTML though, HTML makes it really easy to change the fonts. So if you're making an HTML report, you can customize that just how you would a web page with CSS and style sheets and so on.
Yeah. Jennifer wanted to know, can you do the same in Jupyter notebooks if we know that at all? Jupyter and Python.
Yeah, I haven't investigated converting Jupyter notebooks to PDFs, but I'm almost positive they have the same type of reporting features. I just can't remember off the top of my head what those are.
Okay, and then let's see. Is it possible to deploy web apps using RMarkdown without Shiny? The Cache asked this.
Yes, but what Shiny does is it allows you to have interactivity using like widgets, what they call widgets or HTML components. So you won't be able to use drop downs if you don't use Shiny, but you can still have interactivity like this. For example, the plot right here, you could put this in a web page just as a plot like this, and they'll be able to use all this functionality. They just won't be able to interact with it in terms of like having drop downs and changing things and having it re-render.
Awesome. And then John asks, where does Flex Dashboards fit?
Okay. Flex Dashboard is my special bonus for you guys today. So you guys ready for a bonus? All right.
Ready for a bonus.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. So Flex Dashboard, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with that technology, is it's a special type of RMarkdown that allows us to build web pages very quickly in the same RMarkdown format. So the key here is that RMarkdown, once you learn it, it's super useful, not only for PDFs, not only for HTML reports, but for apps. So you learn one technology and you then become proficient in all of these different capabilities. So you guys got to check this out. This is kind of like, if you think about the workflow, we made this report, and then now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get approval of our bike model pricing prediction app. We want our bosses to allow us to build an app that can help our R&D department. Well, that's what I've gone ahead and done here with RMarkdown. So let's check it out. Okay, so this is an RMarkdown app. And I'm just going to scroll to the top here. You guys can see that it's got that same type of format to it. And what it does is it has some code in here. It's got text in here. It's got, a sidebar. It's got these inputs that I'm adding in here, and this is actually what we call shiny inputs. So these are the drop downs over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in a web page. So you guys got to check this out. All right, so the way I have it set up, nothing pops up right away until I hit this Apply Changes button. So when I hit Apply Changes, behind the scenes, what it's done is it's running my XGBoost model on all of our data sets, and then it's allowing for our R&D department to enter in some new bike models that they're considering making. And then they're going to see what the price should be for that model. So for example, the first one is a Scalpel-SI 5 Black. And black is a key feature over here. So it's toggling to 1. And then what our XGBoost model is doing is it's running all of our model on these features, and then it's determining an estimated price. And that's what this red dot is it's our prediction. So what we've done here is now not only have we made a document that out of RMarkdown that hopefully convinces people that are stakeholders within our organization to use this model, now we've got a proof of concept app. And want to hear something amazing? This app, I built it. I started it. When did I start it, David? 12:45 this afternoon.
Yeah, it was like less than 2 hours. I think.
So I was gonna for the bonus, like I wanted to make this, but I was running out of time. I built it in like an hour and a half. And
Yep.
And here's the amazing thing: you can do this too. It's really not a whole lot of code. So let's check out the app a little more. If I change the different categories from road, and if I if I add a new over mountain in here, over mountain bike, and if I change this to Jekyll, and we'll say Jekyll 5. So if I hover over these, I see there's a Jekyll Carbon 3. So I'm going to change this to an aluminum 5, over mountain aluminum, apply the changes. Now my dot's over here, and it says it should be priced at $2,900. Now let's see what happens if I make that a high mod bike. So high mod, hit the apply changes, and that's now increased the price about $500. So this is the advantage of having an app like this, is that we can run our XGBoost model under the hood, and then now our R&D department doesn't have to know data science. All they have to know is how to be able to use the app. This app includes several technologies. Number 1 is RMarkdown. Number 2 is Parsnip, which is week 6 of our course. We have 5 hours of modeling with Parsnip. It includes XGBoost, which is one of the models that you learn how to do in our course. And it's basically got all of this wrapped into a web-based RMarkdown document. So pretty sweet. All right. How did I make this thing? Let's take a look at it. So here's the code. I'm going to scroll right to the bottom. So 181 is the end number here. So 181, and I can actually decrease it now because there's a lot of white space in there. 177. And you can see that 177 lines of code is not a whole lot of lines to be able to create this amazing predictive app. How did we make it? We use flexdashboard. These are the libraries we loaded. I have a few different functions that I'm loading in. I have some data that I'm loading in, and then I'm doing some feature engineering right here. I'm reading in the models that we created from last week, and I'm extracting out that XGBoost model. So that's the model that I'm going to be using to create the predictive app. Then add a little bit of CSS. So you can actually add CSS right into your RMarkdown documents. I've added in a few different inputs. So these are the 4 inputs. The first one is a text input, which is right here. The second one is a select input, which is a drop down. And third one's another drop down. And that allows me to add in my secondary product category. And then the third one's this drop down here, aluminum and carbon. Okay. we've got, this is a little bit of HTML that I've thrown in here, and all that does is put this technology used here so you guys can see what technologies I used to build the app. And then we actually get into producing these components over here. So the first one is my product portfolio, which is this piece here. Looks a little squished because I have it, because I'm viewing it inside this, this window. But you can see there's not a whole lot of code here. I'm rendering. I have a special plot bike features function that creates my plotly plot, and it's just not a whole lot of code. Same thing with the estimated bicycle price. I'm rendering a table on the fly. So as I change this from aluminum to carbon, this changes over here, and it re-renders everything. So that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to it. And the thing I want to mention is that these are all technologies that you can learn relatively quickly. And these are value-adding technologies. Imagine if you have a report, but then you also go into that meeting showcasing this web app that you just built as a proof of concept, and you even have invited R&D members of the R&D department to that meeting, and they get a chance to play around with that app. That's basically the selling process. You don't do the selling. It's not you selling it. It's you showcasing what you can do, the value you can bring, and seeing if they want to take advantage of it. And I guarantee there's probably not a whole lot of people in your organization that can build this web app.
Mm-hmm. So Matt, just there's a couple of sort of clarifying questions. Is this right here what we're looking at, this app considered Shiny?
This app utilizes Shiny. So you can see here there's this runtime Shiny. If I did not allow Shiny to be utilized in this app, I would not be able to use this interactive component here. I would not be able to enter new information in here. Like, so say I want to make a new bike that has, we'll say, disc brakes on it, D-I-S-K or D-I-S-C. If I apply that change, if I click this button here, it all updates. That's what Shiny gives us. It gives us that functionality that allows us to enter information to allow the user to interact with our application. And then the application updates based on what that user does.
Okay. So still RMarkdown, but Shiny's in there for the interactive features.
Exactly.
Okay. And then I think there's some questions around when you run RMarkdown, say for HTML, and how do you go about deploying it? What are the files? Is it just an HTML file? Is it HTML with some JavaScript? And can you just deploy that on a regular web server, or? Yeah,
actually it's a, you have to use the RStudio has a free product called Shiny Server, and all you do is you deploy it with that. So you create files that can be put onto the RStudio server, and like for example, if you click this publish document button, now what this will do is it'll create all of the files, and you can publish it to a server. So then you just click the publish button.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
And then is this really quick? Is this do you show this whole process, the build the models and Shiny, in the first course or second course?
Sure. Okay. So that's a good question, and what I do want to tie this information to is to the courses. So basically what is going to happen is we've got the 101 course and we've got the 201 course, which work in tandem. And then the 301 is where we teach how to build Shiny in depth. So actually building an entire web application, learning HTML, CSS, and all of that, all of the functionality that you want to actually be able to build like a production level app. So this is good for like a proof of concept, but you're probably going to eventually have users that want things to be moved different ways. And Flex Dashboard's great, or excuse me, RMarkdown's great because it gives you kind of like an app that looks like this by default. But if you really want to customize it, you need to learn Shiny, which is covers the scaffolding, meaning like how this app looks. meaning the widgets, where you want those to, like what functionality do you want those widgets to do? How do you want it to update your report? So that's what we do in the third course. And that third course is getting ready to come out next month. We're just preparing. It's going to be HTML, CSS, and Shiny. And you're going to build a web application that takes the machine learning model you build in 201, which is for a churn problem. And you're going to actually deploy that in a, or you're going to make that into a Shiny web app that incorporates all the technologies that you learn in the 201 course. Okay, so that was the app. This is basically what I wanted to tell you about learning RMarkdown. We're getting ready to release, I've just finished up the business reporting section, which is week 7 of our 7-week system, the business analysis with R course. We're teaching RMarkdown and Plotly interactive plotting in that section. So if you remember all of those plots that were interactive, that's Plotly. And all of the RMarkdown that you saw, those 2 reports at the beginning, those 2 reports are included in that course. You will build the price prediction algorithm report and the customer segmentation report. That's a lot of information, a lot of content in one course. I know it's probably overwhelming if you if you're just seeing kind of like the business reporting, but don't feel overwhelmed, because that course really takes you through, there's no prerequisites. It takes you from the beginning all the way to the end. So the beginning with data cleaning and manipulation, to visualization, to machine learning and modeling, and then to business reporting over a 7-week process. And you learn pretty much the basics behind everything that you need to know. So data manipulation, time series, text, visualization. You have challenges to actually test out your learning and make sure that you're locking in your knowledge. We've got machine learning in week 6. So we've got 8 hours of video lessons, 3 on clustering, and then 5 hours on regression. And there's 2 challenges in that section. And then you get to the week 7, which is your business reporting, which is learning RMarkdown. It's learning Plotly, and then it's applying those to 2 reports to build those interactive reports. Okay. Machine learning, the 201 is kind of extends what you learn in 101. So that's like taking the advanced machine learning. You're learning H2O, you're learning Lime, and the distributing results. So we talked a lot about building web apps. So if you're building machine learning, generally speaking, the machine learning doesn't do anything unless it's deployed. And in order to gain business value, you need to build a Shiny web app. And that's where you're going to generate the most value for your company. So that's what the third course is. You're integrating the tools and techniques that you learn on advanced machine learning from the 201 course, and you're learning from dplyr from the 101 course, and you're building web apps, like production quality web apps that are built with actual Shiny, not just RMarkdown, but that you really can make look and feel any way that you want them to look, beyond just the scaffolding that comes with RMarkdown. Okay, so this is kind of just an overview of the entire process, and I don't know, anything you want to add, David?
No, I think this has been good. Again, I think there were some questions about the 101. 101 starts off very, very basic. So if you don't know, you don't need to know anything about R. You don't need to know anything about R Studio. And it takes you through installing R and R Studio. It takes you through loading data. It takes you through the very basics of how to set up your file structure, loading the data in and cleaning. Just the whole process is very, from the very beginning. So you don't need to know anything.
Yeah, the 101, I liked what you said last week. There is definitely a lot of hand-holding in 101. I've designed it that way.
Yeah.
It's just, I know when you're first learning something, the last thing you want to be done or have done is to be thrown into it. So the 101 really takes time to show you all of the different tools that you're going to use on a regular basis, meaning for manipulation and time series, text analysis, feature engineering, like all of the things that you actually will do at your job, visualization, and then the machine learning, which is the fun stuff. It gives you a lot of content on machine learning, and then now business reporting. So you're going to get a lot of content on that.
Yeah, and so I've been in both courses. I think I took the 201 first, and then I took the 101. And actually, the 101, I learned a lot in the 101. And I think, Matt, you've heard that from 201 students where they took 201 first and then went to 101 and was like, wow, this is really good. I needed this.
So there's so I have a course survey at week 3 of the 201, and consistently what I was getting was explanation of complex subjects as what they want more of. So that to me leads me to believe that even though they're in the 201, they probably need a little more information. And that's when the 101 comes in. So to be honest, actually about 30% of the people that took the 201 and started out with the 201 have actually converted into the 101 because they want that foundational skill set. And it's not a bad thing. It like you said, you ended up learning a lot out of the 101.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a really good thing. So I'd say go for it. You don't need to know anything, and that's really what the course is all about. Is getting you ready, for doing data science work.
Yep. We do have a promotion for anyone attending the Learning Labs. It's Learning Labs plural, and if you can use that promotional code to get 15% off. And that will help you get on your data science journey so you can start accelerating your career, creating these PDFs, creating these web apps, and really being a valuable asset to your organization.
Yeah. And so can we answer just 2 questions, Matt?
Sure.
Before we jump off. Okay, because I know people are waiting for their questions to be answered. Will the slide deck and code be available for this week's Learning Lab?
So we aren't going to give away all of the code. That's because it's basically part of the 101 course. Let me think about the code. The slide deck definitely will be available, and the recording. Yeah. So if you wanted to recreate the code, you could probably try and watch the video and at least get your hands dirty with building code or building our markdown documents. The code I'm just a little concerned about because it's part of the 101 and I don't want to do that to my students.
Sure.
But yeah, we're definitely going to give you a lot of resources for sure. At least at bare minimum, the recording and the slide deck.
And when is the 301 course available? I know that's something that's being worked on.
Yeah, 301's being worked on. So 201 gets finished up this week. And then we roll out 301, hopefully by the end of next month at the latest, May for release date. And you're going to be getting a lot of good content in that course. That's probably the most exciting course of the bunch. Not that they're all great, but 301 is really pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. And this one is a little bit more technical, but Extra Blue has been asking this question over and over.
Okay.
But he wanted to know how you program the interactive parameter, params, $interactive, inside the functions.
Yeah. So basically, here, I'll go back to the code there. So what I did, this interactive false is what we call parameterize our markdown. So this false attribute will get applied anywhere that anywhere I decide to use this parameter. So just to give you an idea, this parameter is able to be accessed by using params, $, and then I just interactive. So it's actually a component. And if I run that, it says false. And if I toggle this to true, and then run it again, now it's true. So what I can do is then in my customer heat map, internally the code will return either a plotly dynamic graph or a static graph, which is just a ggplot. So if I change this to false and run it, what's it saying? Okay, I need to run some of this code. Just bear with me 1 second. So I'm just clicking the play button on these 3 code chunks so I can run that. And then now when I run it, it's creating a static plot. And then if I change this back to true, okay. And now I've got the interactive.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, I think this might be a wrap for today.
All right. Well, I appreciate you all for hanging on. And I think this was a good one for you guys to see, because we're getting closer and closer to that end product, which is, you know, what everyone wants to get to. So thank you guys for attending. And as always, I can't wait for the next Learning Lab. There's going to be a lot of good content coming from us. One other thing I do want to mention too is I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about what we're doing. So I'm going to try and maybe create like a survey or try and do something through social media as well to find out and make sure that the topics that we're addressing are the ones that you guys want us to be talking about. I did have a small one that I released through the Business Science LinkedIn, and just asking a question of, you know, what topics you guys would like to see. And from what I've heard so far, a lot of them has been related to time series. So that might be something that we have to hit here in an upcoming Learning Lab. Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks for showing up, guys, and sticking around for over an hour with us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Take care. See you later.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.